right, let's talk about the five biggest retirement risks that are out there right now, huh? See what I
I
did?
like it.
I got it.
I like how you did that. That was
Yeah, you
good.
got
That
it.
was good. All right, so you got the first one. Let's just talk about, making your money last. What is your biggest pet peeve for everybody when it comes to retirement?
The concept of only, and know that number, like don't go for more, don't go for less, just know your number.
But as far as your expenses go, like you've got to know your expenses.
Nobody ever does.
Yeah, I was trying to get that there. So it's your biggest pet peeve. You've vocalized this multiple times. So
Yeah.
I'll remind you of it. So the idea of knowing your expenses, because if you don't know your expenses, there's a good possibility you could run out of money, or you don't allow yourself to live enough in retirement. I can't tell you the number of conversations I've had here recently where we've been updating planning through Nest Egg software we use here with clients, and the idea of them having too much money and not willing to spend it. And there's always this like fine line here. And what's tricky is there's a lot of softwares coming out there. If you haven't started to realize in financial planning, there's millions that you can look at. There's the Monte Carlo that runs 1,000 scenarios, says, okay, here's the world's worst, the world's best stock markets and everything in between, finds a median line probability of success. That's a great scenario. Then you have the cash flow analysis that's going to show you, every year you're going to get, let's say, a 6% return, and that's how it works. The problem is it doesn't account for, drawdowns in the market or anything like that, or, market pullbacks. Mm-hmm. Then you've got, all these other softwares that are saying, well, Monte Carlos are actually too conservative. But I also say cash flows are too liberal when it comes to the number. It's really trying to find a balance there. And so it's trying to talk to these clients and saying, okay, you want to spend some money, let's spend the money. Make sure that you have enough, though, that is going to last and you don't run out. Because the last thing I want is for you to be 80 years old and end up living to be 95 and stuck solely on Social Security. So I really think that, figuring out, making sure that your plan is going to last for you is a key factor there and a big risk for retirement.
Not as elegant, but I would also say break down the expenses. I'm not saying like a Starbucks and whatever it is, but you have a monthly set expense, usually some varied amount, and then through the retirement, you're going to have these oddball things that you do. We see it all the time where people say, well, I buy a car every 5 years, vacation to see the kids a little bit more, take them on vacation, whatever. Itemize that stuff. So you're dinging yourself for $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is, and then we're putting more pressure on your overall plan so you don't run out of money.
100%. You want to take number two?
Number two, I actually don't like the way this is presented in the advisor world. Your healthcare costs, for whatever reason, they use that as like a scare tactic. You better start saving, you better start saving. And that's fine. Yeah, you probably want to save. But I also look at the other side of this too and go, well, advisor person, what's the strategy, right? Can I use my HSA? Will I want to reimburse myself later for things like that? How will I go about funding that part of it? And that goes to what he was saying about the cash flows. If we can see that and we know what your healthcare expenses are, we can start solving for that. But do you think healthcare is going to get cheaper? Probably not. I don't think that's a reason to be scared and like frustrated. Just, hey, there's got to be a strategy. Let's work through it.
Yeah, and I think too, for people, especially those retiring before 65, it's a big fear for people. And I've talked to so many people who are like, I've got to work till 65 so that I hit Medicare. It's like, no, you don't. No, you do not. That is a myth. I want to just blow that out of the water because it's not correct. The idea, though, is doing the proper planning for your healthcare prior to retiring to make sure that you can keep your income low. So let's say that you have a brokerage account. You could pull from that, have dollars that come in. Maybe you're having to pay long-term capital gains, but you're also pulling some of your cost basis from your brokerage account, keeping your income low to allow you to be able to have affordable care, because there's affordable health care. A lot of people are saying, well, where's that going now? What's going to happen? We never know exactly, and everybody's always got their thoughts. The fact is, though, is that if you do the proper planning, like you said, there's a lot of opportunity here to make sure that you can get through and not have this big risk in retirement of healthcare. It's just doing the proper planning there.
That's a fancy way of saying we want to make you look broke, right? At least low income.
Prior to Medicare.
You need time, though. Yeah.
And then Medicare too, IRMA. You've got the IRMA. So if you have a lot of money, then it's like, okay, well, you're potentially going to have to pay some IRMA penalties there. Though, go back. I was gonna say one more thing with this, or do you have something else?
No, that was it.
Yeah, because I was thinking too. The idea here is that so many people that I've talked to are saying, well, I want to wait until 65 to retire and be on Medicare, and I don't want high healthcare costs. Do not delay your retirement solely to not pay high healthcare costs if you have the money. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. And so the idea here is to make sure if you've got the money, if you've got to pay $24,000 for you and your spouse for healthcare, then so be it, as long as the money is there so that you can enjoy your retirement years. Too many people penny pinch. You've worked your whole life for it. You've got the money to be able to, cover the costs here. Go for it.
Yeah, that's why I love when we get our hands on like a 50-year-old new client and they're doing okay, maybe not quite there yet, but we've got so much time to go through all of that scenario. And then they tell me, 59, 60, I'd like to retire. And even if they haven't thought about some of the healthcare issues there, it's like, okay, we're going to work through it. We can get you through it if we have enough time.
Yep.
Number 3.
Market volatility.
My favorite.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I bet this is your favorite. Let's talk about it a little bit then. I'll let you kind of take the rein on it. And then
what is it? I don't know. I'm just so this is a real thing, and nobody's thinking about this right now because what's happened since the election night? Up and away. Everything's fine. Almost everything, really. And so, it doesn't stay that way, right? So volatility is just like code word for emotion. And when the market gets volatile, you get emotional, right? And to see it through that MicroStrategy stock everybody's into and SMCI, they're all emotional about it. Well, look at the stock. It's going crazy, right? So we have to address the market volatility. And all of that just goes right back to the beginning where if we know the number, we know where you're at, we've got, asset location and the fancy stuff done, then the volatility you should be able to handle. We only want to have as much as we need to make the plan successful. So I find that a lot where somebody's, been gung-ho their whole life. They're S&P, they're very aggressive and all that. Now we're crossing 50 and maybe they want to retire a little earlier and you go, we need to find out what that is for you. So careful there.
Yeah, and being diversified, that's going to help with market volatility.
Back-to-back 20% years, right? Yeah. If everything stays the way it is. That doesn't happen back-to-back-to-back. It's never happened.
No, it's concerning. Yeah. It's really in a point where it's like, okay, you've got to diversify, have everything set up because there's sequence of return risk when it comes to this market volatility that people are talking about, whatever way you want to present it. The idea here is making sure that you've got other buckets of dollars to pull from, whether you're doing a money market fund right this second, a bond portfolio, or even just, maybe a dividend portfolio or a consumer staples, something that isn't going to get hit as much as potentially large cap stocks would if we had a big pullback.
Yep. Very good. Number 4 is inflation.
Whew, that's a tough word right now.
What are you going to do about it?
We're still feeling the pain. It's coming down, they say, but what was in was already in.
Yeah. And what's funny is it's not, now it's better, but the rate of change of inflation, like how fast it was going up, was the real alarming thing. But just like any other thing, I talk about it with stocks, we did the housing market, cars during COVID, anything that rapidly appreciates in price too fast always settles. And it's settling, right? Technically, it's settling. That's not perfect. But so, yes, that's fine. But what inflation rate are you using for your planning? Are you a stressor and you think, it's always got to be 3.5 or 4 or something? Or are you under assuming?
Yeah, the federal government's target's 2%. We look at a little bit over that to try to account for things. And I mean, the goal is that you're not going to have these high inflationary times. Though, to be honest with you, the market returns have kind of helped for those that are retired in the inflationary phase here because with the higher market returns, you at least got more money to be able to spend a little bit more for the higher cost of things.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't matter because my Snickers was that big and now it's that big and it's more expensive.
Chipotle's, going less on the bowl.
That's true. Like, you got to give him the nod.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no, that CEO's out.
So, he's done. That's right.
He went to Starbucks.
No joke though. Like, do your kids sell the world's best chocolate bars through school or whatever? Did you do that as a kid?
There was we had little packs of candy or something.
Yeah, it was like boxes and they had maybe 20 candy bars in them. I saw one of those the other day. Like when I was a kid, it was twice the size of a Snickers bar. Like they were so tasty. You would sell them for $1. Now they look like these little beef jerky strips. I'm not joking. I saw one the other day and this kid, I'm like, you what? No. And you got to pay like $2 for this.
That's what I was going to say. How much are they? Because weren't they $1? Everything was $1.
Used to sell for $1.
But now they've sized it down, only went up.
I mean, they sized it down by 90%. And look it up. This is no joke.
Probably $5 though now with inflation if it was the real life candy bar.
I felt bad. The kid was so excited walking around. I'm like, I can't do it. I love you, man. I want you to here. Just keep the money.
Yeah. Just take the money. I don't want the candy bar.
Anyways, I got off track there. Number 5.
So this one, it's sometimes a hard one to talk about, but it's reality, and it's got to come into factor when you're talking about planning, and that's death of a spouse. When you've got the death of a spouse, if you were married going into retirement years, you've got the idea that, let's just say that you have, you're the primary breadwinner, you have the higher Social Security. Well, guess what? The spouse passes away, maybe they got half a year's, you're not going to get any of that anymore. Or on the other side of things, if it's, the spouse was the primary breadwinner and you were getting half of theirs, or maybe something close to it, most you're going to get is whatever the highest amount was total of the one person. So you're not going to be able to have some opportunity here to double dip on the Social Security. That's a big risk for a lot of people. Pensions, I've talked about significantly on videos, because that's another one. Depending on how you've set up your pension, if you were lucky enough to have a pension, if you have a spouse, they may have a lesser amount that they get. So that's something to factor in. A lot of different things there. There are some opportunities that, you can adjust for and plan for. Potentially you're going to have less expenses, depending on what age it is. I mean, a lot of people, something happens in the 60s, they have a lot of life left. I mean, maybe they look to remarry. Not saying that needs to be part of the plan, but, it's out there, and we do see that happen. So it's really just, taking that into consideration, having the difficult conversations, and doing the planning to make sure that if something were to happen, that, you are still going to be okay, or your spouse is still going to be okay.
That is, unfortunately, during COVID, that was a big deal. And, coincidentally, when they changed the RMDs for inherited accounts, right? So, or the distributions, RMDs, yeah. So I found that when that comes up, that's not something you can plan for, right? Most of the time you don't know. At least in my case, it's been sudden when I see someone's spouse pass away.
Yeah, you don't, it's hard to, like, when are you going to die? Like, that's always the worst question, but it's also like,
I have a couple that have like some real health issues, but not that they're going to die. It's just they're not going to live very long. So the key there is that, hey, the plan is most likely going to change, right? You get some help with that because the rules change dramatically for how spouses and maybe your beneficiaries have to handle taking out money.
Yeah, that's a key one too. And then a little bonus, because we said we had 5 there. So
we got the 5. We're gonna give them 6.
Yeah. Let's throw it out there. So what about taxes?
That should have been number 1.
Yeah. Well, especially now, we don't know what we don't know yet. As of the end of 24, there's a good possibility that things are going to change at the end of 25, and we're going to wait and see. Hopefully, know something by the beginning of second quarter of next year. We start to see something being presented. But as of right this second, that's a big one, especially if you're talking through Roth conversions and different strategies. But also, there's always the concern. People are putting their money in Roth, and they're like, well, we think there's always going to be higher tax brackets. Like, we have to make adjustments because, the country's in such a deficit. I don't know where it's going to go. We can only give you what we've got. But at the same time, you do have to plan for it. You have to be careful. And that kind of goes back to the death of the spouse, though. Because if you're married filing jointly and then something were to happen and now you're in a single filing tax bracket, complete game changer when it comes to tax liability, as well as potentially having to pay more for Medicare. So that's something that needs to be accounted for as well.
Yep, I just pay as least you can. I've thought about this. How off and on we'll have this conversation. How do we get or hire a tax strategist to sit here? We don't know how to make that work where it can work for our clients. But if you have any ideas, that'd be great, because I'm like that dead set on it, that if there is even the smallest advantage for me to get, I'll do it. Let's go. I'll take the time to do it. I'll work it out. And taxes number 1 to me. So,
yep. Well, and I got a little something for you. It came from Chris here, advisor Chris.
Chris?
So, yep. So he says, what did the snowman say to the other snowman? Do you smell carrots?
Okay.
That was his joke, man. So
it was good. Right? Yeah. It was not bad. It's an Eric joke.
Yeah,
very much so.
I'm having some fun with all the different presentations on Elf on the Shelf stuff right now. What's going on out there?
Yeah.
So if you got kids,
that's cool.
The Elf on the Shelf is always a fun one. That Elf comes to town and watches over the kid and then reports every night back to Santa. So when Elf comes back, it's always doing something pretty crazy. This morning we woke up.
Quit stalling. I'm going to tell the joke anyways.
I saw one, and it was the elf sitting there in the kitchen, and it's got a pan, and it's got brown, the letter E.
There's attachments and stuff now for the elf.
Well, but this one's like you have, it had E's. The elf colored the E's, like a cutout E from the alphabet, lays it on a pan with a spatula, and says, "Look, I made you some brown E's."
Oh, okay. Well, that's cute for the kids. It's cute. Wow.
All right, get us canceled. Let's go.
No, it's just.